Hi everyone, from me, Brent Graham of goodforthegame.co.za. Thursday night, time for the handicap rugby chat that matters. We've got a top-class panel lined up for you because we've got some top-class rugby on this weekend. Of course, the Rugby Championship. We got URC, and we'll also talk about a little bit of NPC as well, because we've got the Mossman joining us after a few weeks off. Mossman, good to see your face again, man.
Thanks. Yeah. Is there someone else coming? Is there? You said there was a top-class panel, but at the moment it's just me and Oracles. So someone's running a bit late.
Yeah, we're waiting for the Crow Tips to pop in. No, this is it, believe it or not. This is the top class panel. And one of the men on the panel has been battling to get his camera unblurry, but it looks like he's still a little bit blurry there. It's the Oracle. Oracle, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Brent. I've realized it's not a cleaning problem after trying to clean it with multiple different screen cleaners and earbuddies and cloths and whatever. So I googled it, and it says there it's a driver problem. So I'll get that fixed. So I'll be as clear as you guys next week. Mossman, Brent took your house last week. I don't know if you watched any of it.
I didn't get a chance to see it.
No, I had a few guys commented that Mossman was there in spirit last week when I grabbed the piano in the background.
But I see you moved to Twickenham. Is that Twickenham?
Yeah, this is Twickenham behind me now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, looking forward to watching that one in Twickenham. But anyway, lots to get into, guys. So we haven't really had a chance to chat about the order, but I think we'll get probably stuck into the Rugby Championship, and then we can talk a bit of URC and then wrap things up with some NPC at the end of the show. Welcome to Darren, who's in the live chat there. Oracle's camera quality top notch as always. Nice on Darren. And Werner also joining us there in the live chat. Good to have you boys on board. But anyway, Mossman, we haven't spoken to you for a couple of weeks, but we've got a Rugby Championship that's beautifully set up here to finish. We've got Australia against New Zealand in Perth. New Zealand really have to go for the bonus point when they're by a lot of points, I suppose, and hope that South Africa don't get the bonus point. And I suppose South Africa warrant there, I think 1-5 or whatever favoritism at the moment. But let's move into that first game and just sliding down to the handicaps here. And Mossman, we got Australia plus 3.5. Now, there has been a fair bit of money from what I can see for Australia this week. The early caps that I saw were plus 5.5 thereabouts. There may even have been plus 6.5. And of course, we've got all the teams in that name now. And a couple of injuries for New Zealand and Australia, but some two top class teams pushed out there. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, I'm going to be going against the tide here. I hope the money keeps coming for Australia because I'm going to go the other way. And I don't say that lightly because in general, over the last little while, I've been backing against New Zealand. I was on Australia last week at plus 15, I think it was. I'm happy to sort of zigzag and go the other side because I think in some way the hate's gone too far. I think 3.5 is just a bit too small. And even thinking about back to that line from last week, and it closed sort of 14.5, 15.5, somewhere around there. If you obviously swing from home to away, and that might get you kind of 8 points, which gets you to 6.5. If you weren't happy with the way New Zealand played and you think they needed to be downgraded, maybe you knock off a point and maybe that gets you to 5.5. But either way, I think kind of struggling to get to 3.5. And the other thing about the home field advantage is that there's no travel factor here because both teams have actually come from Auckland to get to Perth. Perth is not a normal home ground for Australia. There'd be, I'm not too sure how many Western Force players are in the team. Harry Potter is one that springs to mind. I don't think there's too many others. So I don't think there's a huge home field advantage for Australia in this particular game, in this particular spot. So yeah, I'm happy to take New Zealand. And I also think that I'm okay with some of the injury enforced changes to the All Blacks actually. So I think Tamaiti Williams coming in for De Groot is possibly an upgrade. Maybe the reason he hasn't been starting at this point was because he was injured coming out of the Super Rugby final. And Lester Nuku, like I'm pretty excited to see him out there as well. So yeah, I hope the money keeps coming. You know, if I could get 2.5, I'd be over the moon, but 3.5's pretty good.
Right, just to ask the guys in the live chat, if anyone has seen a points line on this game, please come in. I did have a look at the weather, and it looks like we might have some showers in Perth there, so perhaps that's why the bookies are a little bit hesitant on the points line. Oracle, let me go to you on this one. I mean, I think you were also on the Australia Plus last week, which arrived fairly comfortably because, well, I was on the 16.5, so I had a score in hand at the end there. But it was one of those games where you really felt Australia blew a chance to win it. How are you positioning yourself for Perth?
Yeah, last week I backed them on the board, and I also took plus 11.5. So it was 9, and if there was an extra conversion, I was quite safe. But I didn't consider taking like 4 or 5. I didn't feel that was safe enough, especially with the New Zealand probably trying to grab a bonus point if they could get one. I do think Australia, it was in their hands. They had, when they won that defensive play with 2 minutes to go, when they were losing by 4 or 2, I think it was 2, 26-24. Yeah. I thought, and then they got a penalty and then they stuffed it up. I don't know. It was odd to me. They could have gone on and scored. I thought they played very well. New Zealand didn't impress me. They did not impress me either. I didn't see much. They just played, and I think Australia lost the game rather than New Zealand won it. That's how I felt. It's over for them now. They can't win. I don't think they can come last either. Well,
Australia, I'll stop you there, Gav. I think in theory, Australia can still win it. And I say in theory because they're on 11 points. They can obviously get to 16. And if South Africa had to lose to Argentina without getting a bonus point, then yes, Australia can win it. But it's a mathematical chance and nothing more.
Yeah, you said they were 1-5. I think that 20.
What I saw 1-5.
20% return on the weekend is very good. I don't know.
I'm checking quickly at Bet Exchange. I'll just quickly tell you what the price is. Just under 1-5. I'd say they're trading at about 1-6.
There shouldn't even be a price. I don't understand this. I don't know. South Africa not losing this tournament. I heard it. I watched a few videos this week, and they were talking as if New Zealand had a chance. New Zealand don't have a chance in this tournament. With a -6 against +55, it's too much. Argentina would have to win this game by 20, and they'd have to win by 40. It's not happening.
Yeah, not necessarily, because obviously if South Africa lose, then the points difference don't necessarily come into it. It's only if New Zealand get a bonus point and South Africa win without one, New Zealand would have to win by like 62 points or something like that. Plus, South Africa would have to just narrowly beat. So you're right. It's very much in South Africa's hands. The question is whether you want the type of punter who wants to take the 1-6. It's called an 18% return on investment.
Yeah. We spend a lot of time talking about stuff that isn't happening.
I'll be looking at the games themselves for some value.
Let's move on.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to tell you, I don't know what to do in this game. I'm with Mossman. This handicap is too low. It's too low. It doesn't feel right. I wasn't going to be a New Zealand punter here. So for me, it was always backing Australia or not having a bet. And at these levels, I'm not having a bet. I'd like to watch a bit of the start. Again, probably have a halftime bet. But at this number, I'm not interested. It doesn't interest me in any way.
Right. Well, AML coming in saying Australia winning this, and I can tell you I'm with you on that one. I didn't get the early cap. I think Australia win this in Perth. I think
there's no value at 18-10 for me. They can win. They can win without my money.
I agree.
At this point.
I'm not particularly excited, but I don't only bet when I see huge value. I think 18-10 is a price I'm willing to take on the board. But yeah, I'm not overly confident in this game. I just think I agree with the Australian money, and I think at the end of the day, New Zealand. You could argue they didn't really put in a great performance last week, but they certainly have struggled to put in back-to-back. I love the fact that Skelton's back for the Aussies, Valentini on the bench. So yeah, I'm in the Australia camp here, but nothing overly confident. But yeah, AML agreeing with me there on Skelton and Valentini. Australia 1-12 says Johan Esthuizen. what does the Crow tip say? He would wait for in play. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly an option. This is not a weekend, I must say up front, that I fancy anything particularly strong. But yeah, I'm leaning Australia on this one. Quick thought, Mossman on the points line. I've seen 56.5 and 57.5 quoted. Have you got any thoughts on that? I see there, from what I've seen, a little bit of rain forecast in Perth.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the weather forecast. So that in general seems high. So I think if Australia are to win this, like you think they will, they probably win it in a high scoring kind of contest, I would have thought. Yeah, I haven't looked at it.
Darren saying you can't win big tests without a 10. Now, it's interesting because I think it's Edmund has come in at 10 for Oz. So and of course we've got DMAC with Barrett in.
Yeah,
Barrett
that's
there. So
I mean, Edmed is just a bog standard kind of player. You know, someone who couldn't nail down the starting job for the Waratahs. So you know, to me that's another big one.
And Darren, just confirm, is that what you're talking about, or are you talking about DMAC? Because there's a lot of people who don't think DMAC's international standard when it comes to a 10 in a tight match. I don't know. I personally quite rate him. But anyway, it should be a good game there. I hope we got a points line in the other game as well. James O'Connor coming on for the second half. I mean, O'Connor, he's been a revelation, but last week he did make a lot of mistakes, not finding touch, kicking directly out of touch off a dropout as well, put his team under a lot of pressure. So I can understand the change, certainly in that regard. Right, well, I don't think any of us are overly confident in this game. Mossman's hoping for a bit more money for Australia so he can get a better price on New Zealand. And Darren says, Edmed would not look out of place in the Varsity Cup. Okay, thanks, Darren. You've clarified that for me, no doubt about that. And Crow Rugby reckons scary love for the Aussies. They only did it because New Zealand stopped playing for 30 minutes. Yeah, it's a habit of New Zealand's, though, Chris. We got to also accept that. Right, let's move on to the next game. Argentina. This game is taking place. This is Argentina's home game. It's taking place at Twickenham. A lot of people have said going to be like a home game for South Africa. I think Argentina will have their fair share of support, but certainly Twickenham, always a great place to watch rugby. I've never watched it live there, but certainly always enjoy it on TV. It's normally, unless it's pouring with rain, you get a very, very good game of rugby. We've got plus 14.5. Oracle, I'll start with you. There was some plus 16.5 Argentina early doors. I've seen it come into 13.5 and sort of go back out to 15.5. So it seems to be moving around in that sort of region. Now, of course, you may want to touch on last week's game, where at halftime it was very much in the balance, but South Africa absolutely running away with it, winning by 37 points and putting themselves in the box seat. What are we doing here?
I just want to comment on Darren's sentence. He said, big tests aren't won without a number 10. I'm going to say his grammatical error. This is not a big test. The Leaders' Cup is gone. This is a practice game for these two teams. They know they can't win this tournament. And that also makes me very hesitant to put any money on it. In this case, I was right last week. I took minus 22 in the end. I fell asleep during the second half. I was hell of a tired. I ended up having to watch the balance that I missed on a replay later. I think this is going to be a rout again, and this time South Africa won't make silly mistakes like they did in the first half. I don't see Argentina getting more than 20 points here, maybe 15, and I think South Africa can put 50 past them again. I think this is going to be an absolute rout, and I'm going to use Mossman's comments from earlier, and I'll wait until this gets down to minus 9 or minus 10 when people back Argentina because they think they chose the home game and there's a bit of value there for them. I don't think so. So I can go get a minus 25 or minus 28 at a decent price. So, yeah, I've got nothing for Argentina here. I think they were lucky to not have 80 put past them, and they were lucky to get 30 points.
Interesting. I definitely don't see the line coming in too much more, to be honest. In fact, I think it might even go the other way. I was a little bit surprised. I thought the line would be a little bit further out because, it's not a home Argentina game. And, of the side, South Africa obviously got more to play for. Mossman, interested in your views on this one?
Yeah, you would think something as obvious as whose home ground it was would be reflected in some of the lines. But I've seen instances where either the bookmakers or whether it was the public just didn't seem to know or take it into account.
That's true.
It seems super obvious to us because we're across it. But I think if you're a bookmaker and you're trying to price up 500 different things, and you're just working out of your spreadsheet, and your spreadsheet doesn't have something that says it's a neutral game, then you just roll out the same number that you would have rolled out before. And I think, and I've definitely seen that. I've 100% seen that at times. And I wonder whether there's some of that in here, because I do think that this number is probably a little bit short for that reason, and also because the Argentina team that has been named is actually looking a little bit experimental. Like when you replace both of your halves, especially sort of Santi Carreras, who's was pretty good, I thought, and the halfback whose name escapes me for the moment, but I also had thought he's had a good tournament. So you've got brand new halves pairing, you've rotated a bunch of guys, Malia out to the wing, there's a few others as well. It just there was some weird selections that just suggest to me that it is a little bit experimental for them, that they're just sort of maybe either thinking ahead to the future, possibly trying to minimize damage, whatever it was. It didn't suggest to me that they were going all out to win this. So that gives me, at the back of my mind, just some doubt about their kind of intentions in this game. So I kind of agree that I would really only look to South Africa. I definitely don't think it will drop to kind of 9-10. That you were talking about, Oracle. I think that this is probably as good as it's going to get. To be honest, I can see it going the other way.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. I'll get my minus 28 and minus 35. So it should be all right.
Yeah. Pick it. This is an interesting one. AML saying there's a proper humiliation. You can see them being motivated and angry. Box winning this, but close. And I mean, you could be right there, but often after a humiliation, it's not always that easy just to pick yourself up after a humiliation, because you were humiliated and things may not be quite right in the team. And that, so I don't know. I'm leaning towards the box here, but I'll probably quite interested in the points lines. We haven't seen anything yet. I did look at the weather forecast, and from what I saw, there is an outside chance that rain could hit at some stage during the game. Shane asking if I think the line closes minus 20.5 South Africa. I don't think so, Shane. I think if anything, it might edge up to about 16.5. From the current, back almost to where it started. That's my view. I don't see a massive run on this. Could be wrong. Mossman, what do you think? Do you think it's going to be a big run or just edge up a couple of points?
I think it'll probably edge up a couple. Yeah, and I'm always a bit wary of factoring motivation too heavily into your handicaps, because it's just witchcraft. You're just guessing, because you've got a group of however many guys, the 23 that played, coaching staff, wider squad, and you're saying that they're all going to feel the same way. It's like everyone's a human being, right? The emotions of these things affect different people in different ways. Just assuming that everybody's going to be thinking the same, I think is in my mind is a bit flawed.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, there's a good chance that what they're thinking is we thought we were right up there with the best in the world, and we're clearly not. They might be a bit despondent. Darren says 56.5 is the line that he's seen in this game. Now, Darren, I must tell you, last week, when the score was 9-6 after 31 minutes or something, I was thinking, I really hope this is a tight, low-scoring game. Then Colby did his dropout, and the whole game changed from there. But my plan was tight game last week, and I was planning to climb in on the points at Twickenham. And 56.5, interesting. So we minus 14.5. So Argentina probably 21.5, and South Africa 30. No, what would it be? Gav, help me out here, man. With their 14.5 favorites, would be 40, so Argentina would be 21, and South Africa about 37, somewhere there.
21.
Yeah, okay.
35,
100%. Yeah, if anything, I'll be going Bok teams there. But see who joined us a bit late.
It's almost exactly what it was last week. I think last week was minus 13.5 and 55.5 or something. So we're right in the same ballpark.
Yeah.
Yes, that's why I'm a little bit. I mean, I can kind of understand the cap. I thought points might be a little bit higher, but Blake is coming in saying it will be windy, but most of the weather will be heading north to Ireland and Scotland. I must say, you talk about Scotland, we'll talk about the Edinburgh game now, but the weather looks quite horrific for that one. Contaponi has a lot of leverage to motivate his players equally. We look international rugby, they'll always be motivated. I think it's fair to say that there's no obvious things to pounce on in these handicaps. At 56.5, though, Darren, I think I'll be on overs in this game, unless I'll obviously look at the weather close to the time, but I think I'd be quite happy with the overs. Right, that brings us to the URC. Now, Mossman, you and I haven't had a chance to chat about URC because of course it only started last week. Are you following the URCs or one of the tournaments? I know in the past you have, but just checking that you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I actually, you'll be pleased to hear that I purchased URC TV, which is the way that they're now streaming it like globally outside of
Okay.
their main audiences. So I picked that up. So yeah, I'll actually be watching a few games. I did watch one last week, and yeah, one of the good things about the platform actually is you can put it onto you can speed it up. So it's a smooth playback, but just faster. And what I've noticed is if you play it at sort of 1.25 speed, everything seems normal. Even the commentary sounds normal, but you just get through the games quicker, which is great. And then it's one of these ones. If you're streaming it on a laptop, for example, you just click the button and it'll skip forward 5 seconds. So you can literally get through a game in maybe half to a third of the regular time, which is perfect because we're all kind of pressed for time, and I'd like to try and get through as much as I can, but in a short amount of time. So yeah, there you go.
Okay, yeah, that's something that I do. I must say quite often. When I watch one game live and record the other one or whatever, and then sort of skim through, and it's quite nice just forwarding through all the scrums and stuff like that.
Yeah.
As you say, you can get the game done a lot quicker. I'll just bring up Shane's question: how far on South Africa ahead on the other tier 1 nations on ratings? I'm actually not too sure. I haven't really followed it too much. I know we are, I think, number 1 at the moment, and Bitsy's asking me to run it back for what they think on the New Zealand game. So Bitsy, I'll sum that up for you. Mossman's hoping more money comes for Australia, and he reckons he would then get on to New Zealand. I like Australia here on the board. And Oracle is, am I correct, Oracle? You're saying at a bigger handicap you might go for the Oz, but at 3.5, you think the value is the value?
No, I do think they've got a big chance of winning the game, but the price is too short for me. I don't like taking Australia at 18-10 or just under 2-1. There's no value for me. I think they'll win, but they can win without my money at this rate. But again, if New Zealand start off well again and half time there's a price, I'll back it, absolutely. But I'm not backing New Zealand.
Well, let me just... Okay, well, let's get on to the URC. Mossman, I'll start with you. We got the first game. Now, obviously, we got team news in that for some of the games, certainly all of the Friday games, and there are 3 Friday games. We got a bit for the Saturday, so I'll totally understand if you want to focus more of your attention on the Friday matches and just we can skim through the Saturday, whatever you guys want on that one. But Mossman, I'll start with you. Stormers minus 13.5. The Ospreys, big win over Leinster last week. I can't remember the last time Leinster were held to 0 points. It was 35-0. Actually, backed the Stormers at a shade over 7-2 last week outright. It wasn't a big bet, but certainly I was very impressed with the Stormers. The Ospreys came back actually to beat the handicap against the Bulls, although they were well behind it at one point. What are we doing in this one? I think there's been a bit of money for the visitors. I did see minus 15.5 early in the week.
I spotted that you're on the Stormers. I was actually on them as well, not to win, but on the plus 10.5 last week, which seemed kind of like an obvious spot when you looked at the Leinster team. But again, like really good example, right? That's a 10-point underdog winning by, was it 35 in the end? Was it 25?
Yes.
35.
I think it was
right?
35.
Yeah, not quite as big a swing, I think, as you guys had in the Curry Cup. Didn't you have somebody who was a 30-point favorite lose by 40 or something like that?
It was 50.
We did. We had
points,
the Pumas, the Pumas Bulls game. I think the Bulls were. We had two games within a week. The one where we had a 29-point favorite lose by something like 34 points. Remember that one, Gav?
It was, if I remember correctly, it was just over 50, but it could have been 60. I think it was over 50 because that's what made us.
It was a massive. It was massive.
Mad. Yeah, it happens, right? So, yeah. So I think earlier in the week I would have been shaping up to be on the Stormers, but I think the Ospreys have rolled out a pretty good team. So I think this line is kind of right where it should be. So yeah, that's the short story. Yeah, I think it's bounced around a little bit. It's probably has come in, I think, from around 15, but I make it right around where it is. So this one at current prices, I won't be involved in.
Right, well, we'll have a look what the weather's doing there as well. At the moment, it says cloudy but dry, no real humidity, and a mild temperature of 90 degrees in Cape Town. When I say at the moment, I'm talking about the forecast for tomorrow night, not what's happening at the moment.
There won't even be a cloud tomorrow. No clouds.
Anyway, the forecast I said cloud but dry, so it looks like good. Looks like good weather there. So yeah, we haven't got a points line yet. Gavin, your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, it might be windy. It's not going to rain. Yeah, I like Stormers. And I think you said the Ospreys came back. They started well. They started very well. In fact, I was messaging Chris during the game, and I backed the Bulls at Bulls started at -20. I backed them at -5, I think, at halftime. I think it was -5. I was happy with that because my original bet was -22. I think I took.
Yes.
Also nice, but that one lost. But I made enough on the -5. So yeah, I had a halftime bet on that game. I wasn't intending on betting on it, but at halftime, I thought to myself, there's only one team playing rugby here, and that was the Stormers, and I was quite puzzled. I got 11-10. Sorry, the Stormers game.
Yeah. I remember you actually WhatsApping me during
we were talking about the Bulls game. Yeah.
I also got confused.
No, the Stormers game. Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I backed the Stormers at. They were the only team playing at halftime, and it was 6-0, I think, if I remember correctly. I got 11-10 for them to win the game, and that was the only bet I had on that game. And but yeah, I mean, they won comfortably. I think Leinster were very rusty. I'm surprised to see that starting at -9 or 10 last week, they're now the plus team in the other game. That's quite interesting. The Ospreys, I think the Bulls just had a bad start and gave away far too many points than they should have. I like Stormers here. I'm not a big punter on this, but I'll certainly have a bet before the game. And if the Ospreys have a decent start, I'll back the Stormers again. I think they got enough confidence out of last week. They're happy in their stadium. I like them. I think that Stormers team wasn't bad. It was actually a good team.
I was impressed with them as well.
He got 13-10. He got even more than me.
13-10. I remember looking at it at halftime. But when you're already involved in the game at 7-2, you just hoping they'll hold them. But I totally agree. No, I totally agree with you guys. The value was on the basis of the first half. It was, if Leinster didn't have a reputation, there's no ways the Stormers would have been 11 or 13-10 there.
In fact, I'll tell you this much, Brent, which is quite important from a punter's perspective, is I had my bet at halftime and I could have gone to bed and I would have been confident I was winning. It was one of those games where you couldn't see how the other team was going to win. There was nothing for me in that first half, and the second half they were even worse.
Right, well, let's move on to the next game then. This is also Friday night, Dragons up against the Sharks. Oracle, I'll start with you. There has been money here for the home team. When we get to Mossman, he can tell me what he'd seen, but I did see some +4.5, I think it was, maybe even more on the Dragons. There has been support for them. I think the Admiral I saw on Twitter was on the Dragons here. Sharks missing quite a number of players, but at the end of the day, I wasn't that disappointed in the Sharks last week in defeat against Glasgow. I thought they were pretty decent, and I'm starting to get tempted by them at this sort of price. What are you doing here, Oracle?
So, again, another halftime bet. I wasn't going to get involved in this game. I ended up having a halftime bet on the handicap on the Sharks, and I won there as well. I didn't have a big bet. It was a very small bet, but it won. And again, I was impressed with them, and I was quite surprised by the final result, actually. I thought it'd be a lot closer. I like them again. Dragons, I thought they'd get smashed. They didn't. I'm a small Sharks punter here as well. I've got nothing for the Dragons. Storm. Yeah.
I think there is actually.
I'll be backing the Sharks. This is the UK, Brent. It's bad every day. Summer was a good day last year.
Yeah, that's spread out. It's not always bad. And I mean, with these synthetic pitches, it just has
to
clear up a little bit. And you've got
it's horrible.
Yeah, you got a decent game. Darren is saying Sharks are much better than the scoreline suggested. Yeah, I agree with you, Darren. I thought they were better than that, which leads me to believe they got a chance against the Dragons. Mossman, what do you think of this one?
Gosh, betting on the Sharks, right? So it's been a way to get burned over the last little while, but I think I'm willing to put my hand back in the fire here because I agree. I actually think at a pick'em game, where all you have to do is win. Like obviously it's very different at the kind of minus, if they were minus, 4.5, 5.5, but at that number, can never back the Sharks again.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I think that's the thing. There always has to be a time and a place, and I think maybe the time for this is probably here. I think early on in the season, and I was going to say when the weather is better, and I understand there's probably a storm, but it's probably not snowing, because that's I can't imagine something that the Sharks would like too much. So I think if there's a spot, it's probably in these early season or late season games. So yeah, I'm definitely tempted by the Sharks, and I think in a coin flip, I think they've probably got enough just to edge it.
Right, let's stay with you for the next game. Edinburgh up against Ulster. The weather in this game doesn't look good. I see Pablo saying there was some, I think, 54.5 early in the points. He put on the good for the game forum. He went unders. I haven't seen a points line on this, but certainly did check the weather out, and it looks windy, it looks rainy. And we got the home team here who were beaten away by Zebra last week, if I'm not mistaken. They're minus 5.5 against Ulster, Mossman.
Yeah, I think I haven't had a close look, but just at a glance, I think Edinburgh are going to roll out a better team than what they did for that game last week. So I'm leaning in that direction. But the thing is the weather that gives me pause a little bit. It's always hard for teams to beat larger handicaps in bad weather, because if the game finishes 10-5, which I know is extreme,
Yes.
then obviously any number, large number, you're not going to beat. This number's not that large, but it did start at sort of 3.5. 3.5 was kind of would have been an easy one for Edinburgh, but it's moved out a little bit there. So yeah, I'll pay close attention to it, but the time of the match is now an hour earlier in Edinburgh. I wonder if they've done that on purpose to maybe avoid weather or something.
Yes,
which would be a good
hurricane or some storm, Amy, or tropical storm. There's some storm moving in, so they bought it an hour earlier.
Right.
No, they were following your daylight saving time, which you people switch on a month earlier than Europe.
Oh, right. Yeah. No, that's cool. We're actually, it's a bit mixed up at the moment, because we're normally a 2-hour time difference to the east coast of Australia, but it's 3 just for this week, because we've gone a week earlier than them. So yeah, long story short, under normal circumstances, I'd be going Edinburgh. I'll keep an eye on that weather, but that's the way I'm looking.
Yeah, I'm also leaning towards Edinburgh there, but waiting for the points lines, Gavin.
I think this, I like Edinburgh here. I was disappointed in the Ulster result. I did think, maybe the Dragons are better than I thought they were, but I honestly thought Ulster would put them away. So on the back of Ulster not performing what I thought they would, I do like Edinburgh, and I suppose you can tell me how different the team is to the one that lost to Zebra last week. Because that was a puzzling result to me. I didn't bet on it, but I was surprised when I saw the result.
Yeah, it was certainly a bit of an upset last week. Shane saying Oracle race over one-liner. Is that like shed loading? Load shedding. Interesting game. Gav, the thing is and you and me, we're probably going to watch the South African teams, right? And this is going to kick off flat bang in the middle of them. It wasn't initially going to catch with the Sharks game. Now, it's going to clash a bit, I think, with both games. So I'm not really going to worry too much about this game, in all honesty. I'll be watching the South African games. Let's move on to the games on Saturday.
Quickly, we were talking about you asked about the lineup. So yeah, I can see, and don't quote me, because I'm not 100% sure who played last week, but I can see Schoeman, Ashman in the front row. I know Van der Merwe didn't play last week. He's back. Darcy Graham didn't play. He's back. So yeah, there's definitely some bigger names that are back in the team.
Okay, no, 100%. Then, and you start looking at it like that, the 5.5 starts looking quite reasonable to me there. Let's move on to Saturday's matches. We got Connacht. This handicap, I think, has been fairly stable. Minus 8.5 against Scarlets. Anything for you here, Gavin?
No.
Mossman? You can't believe that that's the quickest you've ever come. That's the quickest Oracle's ever passed it back over to you, isn't it?
Yeah,
you weren't ready for that.
Betting on the Scarlets has been a profitable thing to do. Kind of the opposite of what I was saying about the Sharks in the last couple of years, especially last year. So again, I didn't think they were that bad last week against Munster. I just think Munster were actually really good. So yeah, I would look towards the Scarlets if anything. I think 8.5 is quite a big number. Especially that would fall into that bucket of if the weather was bad, and I don't know how widespread this storm is, but the 8.5 is kind of a difficult number to cover in bad conditions.
Right, a reminder, I'll be putting all my bets up on the blog, and I thought last week, actually, I didn't want to get involved in these games. There was so much other rugby on. So I took a treble, all the 1 to 12s, in the Scarlets game, in the Connacht game, and I think it was the Zebra game as well. One of the others. Anyway, I think there were 2 13-point margins last week. So it was a case of close but no cigar. Let's talk to you then. I'll ask you about the Connacht game. Yes, you had no bet on that one. Sorry, Oracle, you were so quick on that one, I forgot. This is an interesting one, Mossman. We got Bulls against Leinster. Bulls minus 7.5. They have got a couple of injury changes to last week. Leinster, I mean, I believe from Mark, he WhatsApped me to say that there's outrage in Leinster there about how they performed last week against the Stormers. But interesting one. I believe there was some minus 5.5 Bulls early. It went out. First I saw was minus 8.5, and it has edged in slightly at minus 7.5. What are your thoughts on this game? Because surely Leinster can't be as bad as last week. You'd think not.
What I like about this line is it's now within the territory where Leinster can get a bonus point, and still lose. And that I kind of like that, just as a kind of a key number for them to want to cross over. So yeah, I make this about 6, so it's kind of right there. But that crossing over of the 7, I think, is probably enough to make me look towards Leinster here.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the points line. I don't know, Darren, if we've got a points line for this game. Obviously, that was my biggest bet of last weekend, over 56.5 against the Ospreys. It was, as some guys I saw put on Twitter, and that a bit of a gift. It's only a gift when it arrives, of course, but it certainly did arrive with some ease. So I'm looking forward to seeing the points lines. And believe it or not, although Leinster got no points last week, one of the markets I'm waiting for actually is Leinster points. I think we're going to see a very different attitude from them. And I think we're going to see another high-scoring game here. Oracle, your views on this one?
I've got an update on the Scarlets game. I'm on the Scarlets. Mossman's sold me. He sold me enough there. He's given me enough information. I'm happy. I'm going to have a small punt on the Scarlets. I probably won't watch the game, but I am going to back him. I do agree with what he said. That's probably, other than the Edinburgh game, probably the only one I'll get involved in outside of the South African game. I think that I think the Bulls win this game, but I'm hesitant to go in at minus 7. And I don't want to back them at 1 to 3 or 3 to 10 or whatever it was. So that's a game again. I'll wait for during the match halftime. I'll make a decision. I may not end up having a game. I do think Bulls will find enough to win it, but I don't think they're thrashing them. I don't think they'll do anything like what the Stormers did. I think the players probably didn't get much golf time in or free time. They probably got flogged about. They want to try their best to win. I don't think they're too rusty to win this game, but I wouldn't be taking the short price.
Henrik agreeing with Darren, saying the Bulls tend to leak points. 1 try for us, a 1 for you. Yeah, that's why the overs totals is quite often the way to go. I'll bring up Bitsy's bet there. It's in the Rugby League women, over 22.5 points. So if you can get that coverage, take a look. I certainly did enjoy the Women's Rugby World Cup. I really, it was very profitable right up until the final, actually.
Stand by for my Kazakhstan table tennis bet at the end.
Kazakhstan table tennis, yes.
I'm involved in,
what is Pro Tips
Austrian 7th Division bandy.
And Crow Rugby says Leinster points definitely the play. He also likes it. Bitsy says there'll also be UFC and NFL bets. Pereira to get an upset to win the rematch. I've done a bit of reading on the UFC there, Bitsy. What do you think of that one? Right, let's have a look. I'll be looking at points at this game. And now we can move on. Benetton, Oracle, plus 2.5 against Glasgow. I'll be up front with this one. No firm opinion on my side.
Yeah, Benetton, geez, I made money on them last year, and especially when they were plus at home. It's problematic this weekend. There's too much with South Africa on, and I'm going out, and I probably, I'm betting far less this weekend than I did last weekend. So I won't get involved here either.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same as you. I'm not nearly as bullish. To be fair, I was only really bullish on the Bulls overs when it came out, and I think it was on Saturday morning. I was more bullish on the Rugby Champs games than that last week.
Also, Brent, the other thing for me is that it's the start of the season still. I like to watch a couple of weeks of this. I did watch a few of the replays of the games that I didn't see live. There's not enough information for me to get involved here.
Right, Mossman, yourself on this one, Benetton plus 2.5.
Yeah, I've sort of mentioned in the past that I don't like to be off market too much and on too many games. You want to be lined up at least a little bit to know that you're not just picking numbers out of the air. And I'm right here on this number. I make it 3, and so yeah, it's at the moment just right where I expect it to be.
Right, we'll stay with you for Munster up against Cardiff. Munster minus 12.5 against Cardiff, who of course beat the Lions last week by 13 points.
Yeah, this is another one where I'm going to be a bit boring and say that I'm right there on the same number. All that could change based on team news. So I'm just looking at the lineups that actually have come through. So Munster have got a lineup out. Cardiff don't, which is unusual because most of the time the teams kind of follow the script, except for the South African teams that they can throw theirs out early. But most of the European teams, they'll come out at sort of midday their time. So Munster have gone early for whatever reason. They do have a lineup out. Cardiff don't. I'd like to get to being on Munster. So we'll see what happens. And that's, in some ways, it's kind of the danger of, when you do watch games and you only watch some, and one of them was the ones that I watched was Munster, and Munster looked really good. They looked strong in set piece and played with a lot of width, and I kind of came away from it impressed by them, but I didn't see Cardiff. So, I guess you come away with a little bit of bias maybe towards the teams that you've seen and not understanding the ones you haven't, which kind of goes to what Oracle says about, early on in the season, not having enough, information. I don't have information other than the teams that I've seen so far. So I liked what I saw from Munster. I'd like to get to Munster, being on Munster, but at the current number, I wouldn't, but let's see what Cardiff roll out in terms of a lineup.
Right, Oracle, yourself, Munster, Cardiff. I watched Cardiff. I'm the other way around. I watched Cardiff last week. I didn't watch Munster. What are you doing on this game?
Nothing.
Right, good, solid discipline there from the Oracle. Of course, that was our bet last week with the Cardiff Lions game. And I mean, Lions led by 6 coming into about probably 30 minutes to go. And some, credit to Cardiff, I suppose they finished fairly strong there. We'll stick with you for the Lions game. Now, this is on Sunday. Zebre up against the Lions. I'm just looking on the Good for the Game blog. I did put the weather up earlier. This is what it said at the time. Overcast but dry, 17 degrees. Yeah, it looks pretty decent weather here. And there has been, I think, money for Zebre here, Gav, but Mossman can confirm that afterwards. But what do you think here? Can we tempt you into a Lions bet here?
No, I'll be backing Zebre this week. But I will have a small bet on it. And I may change my mind at halftime. I'm giving myself the right to go the other way if I've got it wrong. But I think that win, I didn't watch the Zebra game, but the result tells me that they did something right. And they plus against the Lions were shocking. They were shocking. And I don't think they're going to fix all of that in 1 week. Zebra will win this game. They'll win it.
Yeah, Zebra, no pushovers at home anymore. Though I am leaning Lions here. I see they have got a few players back in the mix this week. Frankie Horn, the captain, I saw was one of them. One or two others. I think it might be enough to get them over the line against Zebra. Mossman, what do you think of this one?
Yeah, well, again, we'll see what happens with the lineup. As you mentioned, that's interesting. But right now, as things stand, I'd make Zebra a small favourite. So,
right.
Yeah, always like backing a home underdog in a spot like this. So, yeah, I would take.
I think they've got the wrong favourite here.
Yeah, I agree.
And Darren is coming in with you, boys. There's Zebra decent at home early season. He can't back the Lions under cash. And the sooner he leaves, the better. Right, that brings us to the end then of that. Now we'll touch on, I've got the NPC handicaps up here, Mossman. We don't always cover them if you're not on the show, but we'll certainly go through them now. Oracle, do you want to hang in and share best bets at the end, or do you want to do it now and hit the sack?
No, I think I'm gonna go now. Thanks for the offer to stay longer, but I know nothing about the NPC. I don't watch any of it, and I certainly don't bet on it. Right, I saw Shane asked about the South African women cricket match against England tomorrow night. Over 2-1 South Africa. They've had a decent season. A decent series in Pakistan. They've beaten England before a couple of times. I think at over 2-1 South Africa is a bit of value. That game I will watch and I will have a bet on. I am backing the South African women. Other than that, I'll be honest with you. I'm going to be fiddling around with some of these games, but my main bet is the South Africa minus here, and I'm going to take one with a price. I haven't found what I'm looking for yet. I haven't even looked properly, but I know I'm going to get something around the 7-2 or 4-1 mark, and that'll be obviously in the high 20s, possibly at minus 30. I'm going to have a medium-sized bet on that, which will be a few $100 in today's money. But yeah, I'm quite confident. I think they run away with it. And yeah, I'll be out. I'm going out to watch the game with a friend from Joburg that's down here. So I'm not in the comfort of my own couch and remote and fridge and whatever else. So I'm not in my comfort zone, for lack of a better word. So yeah, I won't be getting involved in anything after about lunchtime on Saturday.
All right. Well, Gav, thanks a lot for joining us. And we'd also like to say goodbye to a large portion of our female viewership as the Oracle leaves the studio. We know why you.
There's oaks that like me as well, Brent. It's not just the chicks.
Before you go, Gav, you can put this game, put Harbour -6 in your pocket as well. Okay, I will do. Scarlets, Harbour, onto everything South Africa. All right, so enjoy the weekend. Thanks very much. Right. Cheers.
Gavin, thanks very much. It was good to see the Oracle there. And Mossman, you've led us into this one nicely. North Harbour -6.5. I haven't looked at any movements or anything, so I'll be totally guided by you. Yeah, there's been a little bit of movement. I think it's sort of gone from 5.5 to 6.5, but I still really like Harbour in the spot. They are currently winless, which you might think is a little bit unusual, but they their bottom, Southland, is just ahead of them. I know I talked earlier about motivation, but a winless team last game of the season, they will want to finish. They want to get off the donut. There's certain teams I think at this point in the season who have kind of quit to some extent. I think Southland have been one of them. They've just put up a series of really bad performances and kind of got towelled. Southland have not thrown in the towel. North Harbour have not thrown in the towel. They've stayed in the fight in a lot of their games. They're almost the opposite. They started the season really badly, but have kind of improved. They've been unlucky at times to have not come okay with a couple of wins. Probably could have beaten Waikato, should have beaten or could have beaten Northland. So yeah, they've stayed in it. Southland kind of haven't. I think I don't know if it's a trip that Southland really want to make. And yeah, I think this is just an ideal spot for Harbour. Right, I see the boys in the live chat agreeing with you. Darren, Hendrik, Fareed, all in alignment. Bitsy saying he likes Harbour points, which would be somewhere around about probably 20. What would that be? Probably somewhere around the 29 mark. I might be. I'm definitely tired to know. I'm betting. I totally agree. In general, it's the reason that number has come down, because it did start at sort of 55.5, is because of the weather. So I'm only a few Ks down the road from the stadium, and it is raining right now. I don't know if that will last though. So we'll see. If it clears up later, I 100% agree that I think Harbour points is another really good bet. Right. Well, let's move on to the next game that I've got here. Wellington +6.5 against Bay of Plenty. Yeah, this one's interesting because it's come down in a few places, and oddly enough, I expected it to go the other way because I thought people would look at the Bay and how they've been travelling in the last couple of weeks, which they've been really good. But it's so to see it go the other way in some spots was surprising, but also I feel that money is actually quite sharp, because I think this is possibly closer than what it appears. So it's an interesting one, because at that number I am tempted by Wellington.
just as a home underdog. They're a little bit light on personnel. They've been much better when they've had their All Blacks there, which seems obvious, but it's kind of like a little bit night and day for them when some of these guys aren't, like Lakai and Love aren't there. So although my numbers are guiding me towards Wellington, I find it really hard to bet against the Bay because they've just got the ability to really run up big scores over the last couple of years. I like them as a team. You would have heard me talk about them in the past. I think they've got a solid forward pack and a back line full of 7 stars, because I know I've mentioned this before, but the New Zealand Sevens base is at Mount Maunganui. So when the Sevens circuit's not running, these guys all turn out for the Bay plenty because they're right there in the same city. So they've got a good balance. So I find it hard to bet against the Bay. So it's probably one I'd leave alone.
Tough game, that one. Auckland plus 4.5 against Otago.
Yeah, this opened at 2.5 here, and I thought that was a bit of a slam, because you're talking about one of the bottom teams against arguably the probably not even arguably, but one of the top 2 teams at the other end of the table. Now, I think I mentioned it in earlier podcasts that I think Auckland is still trading on their name, and I think even at this well, at this price, it's probably fair, but the only reason it's fair is because Otago have rotated a little bit. And my guess is that they've rotated a little bit because they know that they're going to be playing in a quarterfinal next week. I'm sure they'll be keen to win, because it will get them a home quarterfinal, and obviously that flows on to the rest of the finals if they make it that far. And Otago, they will be targeting winning this tournament. I think they're capable of doing that. Whereas, Auckland have been trash basically all season. You would have gone bankrupt beating Auckland this year. So I'm happy to be on Otago at 2.5, because it's enough, that they could just win. It'd be enough to just win. I don't like some of the rotations. They're not playing at Eden Park. They're playing at one of the local schools, and they've turned it into a bit of a family day.
Okay.
I don't know what that means, like in terms of home field advantage. I don't know if that's motivational for Auckland, not playing in the big empty stadium or not. Otago will have some fans there. There's plenty of ex-university students. So at 4.5, I probably would stay away. But if you can get a better number on Otago, as I said, like there was 2.5 kicking around for a while, then that seems an obvious spot for a top team against a bottom team.
Well, Bitsy, I think Mossman answered your question there even before I put it up there. Let's move on to the next game, Mossman. Waikato minus 2.5 against Northland.
Yeah, I make this game 1, so I'm kind of right there. And betting on Northland has been a good thing to do, and betting against Waikato, especially when they don't have their All Blacks, has been a good thing to do as well. Waikato, like, really inconsistent. And Northland just pretty good, really. They've kind of overperformed, and I think they kind of are what they are. But both teams with plenty to play for. Northland are 8th on the table, Waikato 7th. So they are kind of playing potentially for a spot in the quarterfinals. So I think it will be tight, and potentially that might lend itself to an unders game, especially if there's weather. So it might be that I'd look more towards unders points than the total. But if I force bet, I'd take Northland. I did miss out a little bit because there was 3.5s earlier, and I think at 3.5 I would definitely have taken Northland in a game that I see is basically a coin flip.
Well, the next game's got a team that I haven't followed the NPC, but I do know early on in the tournament you gave us Manawatu. They were underdogs, and they won the game, so it arrived very comfortably. So I've never forgotten that bet, because it's my only NPC bet I've taken this season. I see they're big underdogs against Hawke's Bay.
Yeah, because they're one of these teams that maybe it's a little bit unfair to say that they've quit on the season, but they've also taken a couple of big towelings in the last few weeks. And the only thing I'd say is that this is one of these weird spots where and it's happened a couple of times in the NPC, where there's been a team that's been released and you looked at it and you could see straight away it was a copy paste from the previous week, and it probably wasn't going to be the team that actually got rolled out. And that's what happened here. There was a team that was last week. It didn't have Brett Cameron, didn't have Braden Yosse in it. And as soon as I saw those players, I was kind of like, I think that kind of influences things. But I think at 12.5, I'm still on Hawke's Bay. I was on Hawke's Bay at 11.5, and I think that they've rolled out the big guns again. They've got something to play for. That they're fifth. They want to get into that top four and get a home quarter. And I do just Hawke's Bay are just a really dangerous team, and I just think if Manawatu get down, and maybe they sub off some of their guys, that Hawke's Bay could run up a score late. So this is a game which is probably quite high variance, and that it could easily it could go in a lot of different directions, and it could be really high scoring. But yeah, at 12.5, I still sort of happily look towards Hawke's Bay.
We'll move on to the two Sunday games. Fareed also got on the minus 11.5. Just quickly, you touched on quarterfinals, and that I might have missed you saying earlier. Is this the last week of group matches?
This is the last week,
yeah. To the playoffs after this,
yeah, that's right. Yeah, and normally that throws up opportunities for teams to be resting, but that hasn't happened just because the competition's been so close. There's almost something riding on every game.
Okay, excellent. Next game. This is now two Sunday matches. Tasman minus 8.5 against Counties.
Yeah, tricky one because I'm not a big Tasman fan, and Counties I think have really overperformed so far. Numbers say Tasman, Counties they're 9th, so plenty to play for to try and get into the top 8. I'm a little bit on the fence about this one, just because I just saw someone saying Tasman does their head in. Yeah, hugely inconsistent, like lots of talent, but they've kind of been a bit all over the place. Counties with the two All Blacks that they have had, all they need is a bit of ball, and I think Counties have got a really good backline. So I'm just a bit wary because I think Counties they're a good enough team, they're a dangerous team, they can stay in the fight, but at the same time, Tasman are equally a really dangerous team. So it might be one that I'll just stay clear of, I think, this week.
Looks a bit of a dangerous one. That just a quick question on team news for the NPC. Do they follow a similar thing to Super Rugby where everybody releases kind of at the same time,
they do.
On the Wednesday or so?
Yeah, it all comes out on a Wednesday afternoon, and I just don't understand why some of the other competitions can't.
Like URC, why the hell wouldn't you do it like that? I mean, just even a Thursday would be great, but I don't understand the sort of naming a team on a Friday afternoon and stuff. Yeah, I'm with you there. I think it's great that they do it that way, and I suppose maybe they're not thinking of the punters, but certainly as a punter, it's nice to get the information out there nice and early. Right, last game for us to chat about.
But it's also, it's not just punters. There's a lot of people that play fantasy rugby, and for them, having understanding that there are certain times when teams are going to come out is helpful. Otherwise it can become a bit of a lolly scramble that people are sitting there all day just refreshing browser screens, waiting for stuff to pop up. So I think it's better for everyone to kind of release it at set times and a little bit earlier in the week.
And just a reminder to the guys, join us tomorrow, 5:00 South African time. We're going to have the Admiral making his comeback. We're going to talk a little bit of Premiership, obviously touch on maybe URC market moves as well. And I'm sure I won't be able to stop the guys talking about the Rugby Championship. So that's at 5:00 tomorrow. So look out for that show. Right, last NPC game then for you, Nathan. Canterbury minus 4.5 against Taranaki.
Yeah, another tricky one. Another one that's possibly weather influenced. I really like Taranaki and what they've done, and I've got some guys. I see Neepkins is back on the bench. That's big for them. Rona was missing last week. He's back. It's not the strongest team I think that Canterbury could put out. I think maybe Darry is missing. So my numbers say Canterbury, and I think in a close game, I think maybe that's still the way to look, because they're only 1 point ahead of Otago in second. They'll want to finish top and play at home. But I think it's again tricky one. But force bet would be Canterbury.
Right, but see, Canterbury old is not Canterbury new. And Fareed saying, talking about the Premiership there, we don't have coverage on SuperSport anymore. Just a quick one, Darren saying, and I remember this as well, you had the fantasy rugby draft pod. You don't do that anymore, Mossman?
No, that's going way back in the day. Yeah, it's a long
yes. I
time
think it
ago
was
now.
I remember when you first came on the show. It shows you how time flies as well.
Yeah.
Canterbury for Reed there. Right, let's get in, wrap things up.
It's
then
actually
with
that last bit, I suppose, is actually a good point, right? So that they sent the B team to Whangarei to play Northland, so they will be rested. So that's another factor, I guess, in Canterbury's favour.
Right, and Johan Esthuizen, let's bring in his treble. Australia plus 3.5, Ospreys plus 13.5, Munster minus 12.5, and that's at 11-2. Right, let's get your best players of the weekend there, or whether your money's down already or it's still going down, but which are the games that are going to catch your interest this weekend, Nathan?
Yeah, so definitely that North Harbour
minus
6.5. I think you might, if you're lucky, you might get minus 5.5. But I like that one. I think of the other ones that we've talked about, probably the Scarlets was one that I liked, and just looking through the list here, I'm a bit wary of putting the Sharks down as a best bet, just because that could quite easily blow up in your face. But so maybe
I'll be sure to snip that and put it all over X and wherever I can.
Absolutely, yeah. Put it on my gravestone. So I think for me, obviously, I'm happy to swim against the tide and take New Zealand, the All Blacks at minus 3.5 as well.
Okay, excellent. Nathan, thanks very much. Thanks to all the boys in the live chat as well. I'll just check I haven't missed any comments. No, I haven't. And that brings us to the end of the show. And thanks very much, man. Enjoy the weekend's rugger, and we'll catch you again soon. What NPC quarterfinals next week? So that'll be a good time to catch up.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Yep. Thanks to the Mossman, and thanks to all the guys in the live chat. We'll catch you next week for the Handicap Rugby Chat.